Greetings and welcome to the Connect with ControlM webinar series. Today, we will be featuring high availability with ControlM Enterprise Manager 9. I would like to welcome all our participants from around the world. I'm your host, Martin DeCastengrini. I'm a Senior Technical Support Analyst. I've been with ControlM Distributed Support for over 10 years, helping customers in the Americas region. Let's begin by taking a look at our agenda. So today, we'll be reviewing high availability and the benefits that it can provide you. We will explain the architecture of high availability from a Enterprise Manager 9 standpoint. We're going to go over the installation needs for high availability. We're also going to show examples of failover and fallback, as well as manual and automatic failover. We'll go over some troubleshooting tips. And finally, we'll do the question and answers, which reminds me, during the presentation, please enter your questions you have in the chat window. Please address them to all, and we'll be addressing them during the Q&A. Thank you. Let's discuss what high availability is from an EM standpoint. It is the ability to maximize your production environment uptime during any maintenance hardware or hardware failure. This can be leveraged manually to switch the processing of the Enterprise Manager functionality over to a second host while the operating system patches, reboots, or other maintenance is performed on the primary host. Also, with the automatic failover enabled, it's possible to have the Enterprise Manager automatically fail over to a secondary node during the host or local network issue, perhaps even before operators or users are impacted or have time to escalate. Let's check out our high availability architecture. So in this slide, we see that the primary host, which would be active, is connected to both the Oracle as well as connected communication-wise to the secondary EM host, which is non-active. The Enterprise Manager Coordinator for high availability process and utility runs on both the primary as well as the secondary host. It will write a timestamp to the database, and it will communicate to the other coordinator for high availability CHA process. So every 15 seconds, this will allow the secondary host to be assured that the primary is still up, running, and functioning. Should the timestamps or the communication go down, the secondary host can start up and immediately fail over the clients as well. All right. This particular architecture slide shows Oracle. That's what we will support for the Unix or Linux systems. For Microsoft Windows, it will be supported on the database Microsoft SQL Server. Postgres will be supported in a future version or fixed pack of the Enterprise Manager. All right. So the primary install is a standard install. The secondary install, that's going to be required under it would be required to be done as a high availability specific install, and that would be found under the additional options under our normal install. Let's see what that looks like. So here's one of the panels from the install, and I'd like to note that the additional installations is selected, and under that, the secondary installation for high availability. All right, so let me share my screen, and let's take another look at that. So here we've mounted, we're on a Red Hat system, and we've mounted the setup. And so we'll start that, and we'll accept the license agreement and go to the next page. From here, we're going to check the additional installations. And then under here, as discussed, we would choose the secondary install for high availability. Then we're going to go to the next panel where it's going to ask us what type of install we had done originally. So for this, it would be Enterprise Manager. And currently, your choice is Oracle, because this is from Red Hat or Unix. That would be Microsoft SQL Server if this Windows install. Let's go to the next panel, and we can show the database information that it's going to request and what we're going to need. So the database server host, the database server port, the service name, the database owner, and the database password, these are all exactly as were done from the primary, from the primary install. This secondary install will not make a new database. It will just connect to the existing one and be prepared to use it in the event of a failover, either manual or automatic. All right. And let's go back to the presentation. And let's see about the failover and fallback. So for this, in the configuration manager, you will have, once the high availability is recognized on both systems, you will have the failover to secondary button activated. And this will enable you with one press of a button to begin the failover to the secondary system. The primary is identified, and the primary host is also identified within this panel. All right. So let's check out the automatic versus manual failover. This can be selected again in the ControlM configuration manager. If you do a right mouse button properties, you get the option of automatic versus manual. If you do set it in manual, the automatic will not go off even if the primary node goes down. So you may want to leave it in automatic if that's something that's functionality that's desired. You can always do the manual. So the fallback is enabled when you, after going to the secondary, the fallback to secondary button will be activated and you can return to the primary machine. All right. And let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like for the fallback. And let me share my screen again. All right, so here we have the ControlM configuration manager, and we're in the Home tab, but where we're going to need to be to activate the failover is we're going to need to be in the High Availability tab. And as you can see, the failover to secondary is active, and the status is OK. So one other thing I wanted to show is the client. We do have a client connected, and it'll be disconnected at one point after we start the failover, and then it will retry to try to connect, and we will see that. All right, so let's start the failover to the secondary. This is the only warning you'll get. You can also deactivate this message if you just want it to go immediately to it. So we're going to select yes. And so it'll pop up a checklist of everything that's going to happen for the failover to be complete. So let's talk about these. Over here, the initial thing it's going to check for is verifying failover requirements, which is that another machine, a secondary machine, has been installed and that the the CHA is running and communicating properly and ready to take over. So then the first thing the primary does is it says, well, I'm going to shut down. So it shuts everything down. Once that's completed, then we're going to switch control over to the secondary host. And then the secondary host agrees to take control, and then the CHA on that secondary machine will bring all the processes up. All right. So at this time, I'd like to show you the configuration, the client again. And sure enough, it's been disconnected. So let's continue to watch the failover and see how this is proceeding. Other things to note are in this properties, you can shut down this process dialog at any time. And with the checklist, you can bring it back up with this button over here. And we also have a progress bar. So of the 5 steps, we're currently at step 1, and we're waiting for step 2 to complete. There it is. So we're now at 40%. The error is that it's currently not able to be used as a CCM, and that the EM is not currently functioning, as the failover has not completed yet. Once it's on the secondary, it's still going to be in a warning state, because it's not going to be because once you're on secondary, you're still going to be in an alert status. All right, so that completed. And let's, so 100%, and you'll now see that the fallback to primary has been activated, and there's a couple things we can do at this point. So we can do a right mouse button, and from here, if we wanted to continue running on the secondary for a while, we could actually set it as the primary. Or we can also use the right mouse button fallback to the primary. Or we could hit this button over here. One last thing I'd like to show is the client connection. And it automatically was able to reconnect. And otherwise, if the other thing you might have to do is hit the retry button. So without that, let's go ahead and do the fallback to primary now and watch that. So again, we get our failsafe, and then it'll begin. This is a mirror image of what's going on for the original failover. The fallback process, we can show on the secondary, it will shut everything down. It will switch over to the primary. The primary will take control and then start everything. Let's go ahead and take a look at the processes on the secondary system at this time, and we can watch those. So we're going to go into root menu. We're going to log in as the EM user. And we'll enter the password. We'll go into the activation menu, and we're going to do a check all. So here, we'll see what's up and running and where it is. So currently, no gateways are registered, no GUI servers, so everything is still being brought down. The ControlM server status is it's now been showing to be alive on the EMHA1, which is the primary machine. Both configuration agents are up, as we would expect, and the naming service is currently stopped on EMHA2, and it's currently in the process of being brought up on the primary. And here we are. We're going to let's go ahead, and now we went ahead and we did the fallback to the primary, so we can close this. One thing I'd like to note is this banner will stay up in the event of a failover or a fallback. So if the admin comes in, they can see that there's been a failover that occurred, and whether it was manual or automatic. And you can also delete this if you no longer need it. And now we're back to the initial state. One thing else I'd like to show, and the client is back up. Looks like the gateway may need another second or two to connect. All right. Yeah, it's back. So the other thing I'd like to show is the initial stage of the automatic failover. So again, we're going to select the EM properties, and we're just going to verify that automatic is set, which is good. And then let's go to the, I'm going to bring up the EMHA1 session that I have. I'm going to start the root menu, log in as the EM user. Log in as the EM user. And password. And we're going to go to the activation menu. And then in this case, okay, let's try it again. EM user. There we are. And then let's go to the activation menu. And we're going to hit, now we're going to select stop all here. Now we haven't brought down the configuration agent on the other side. So this is actually going to be it's going to warn us that failover will attempt because it's been active. So it'll just be a warning. We'll go ahead and take yes to this. And so it's warning you that failover will occur, but we want to test it. So we're going to say yes. It's also going to tell us that the configuration server is going to want to go down, and we're going to agree to that. Then it's going to send a message for that to go down. And once it confirms that that's down, it's going to ask us to make sure we want to bring down the configuration agent. When you bring down the configuration agent, that's going to bring down the CHA process, and that's going to be what triggers so we're going to say yes to shutting down the config agent. And so at this point, it's as if the primary machine has gone down or isolated itself on the network, or it's now in a situation where you want the automatic failover to take over. And you can see that on the configuration manager, the configuration server status got set to unavailable. So what the configuration, the CHA on the secondary server is doing right now is it's figuring out that the primary is down, and then it's doing what it needs to. It's going to spin everything up, and it's going to transfer it's going to connect to the clients that were connected to the primary. And then it's going to pop up the stage for the checklist for this is actually just 2 items. It's the switching over and then the takeover and startup. So we should be seeing that in a little bit here. If you like failover, I'd like to recommend one of the other Connect with ControlMs. It was, here we go. The Connect with ControlM for ControlM server failover. So here's let's bring up the checklist, and sure enough, as you can see, it's starting the EM on the secondary. I'd like to bring you back to the presentation now. And so from the demo, here's what eventually we would have connected up, and we would have gotten all the checkboxes on this. One thing I would like to note is if at any point there is a problem with failing over in the manual failover process, it will automatically roll back to the original node. All right. And I'd like to talk about some of the parameters and how we'd like those treated. The parameters begin, failover and high availability parameters start with fail, HA, and FO as highlighted under here. The they've been optimized for the EM as it is now. So we are, if you intend to change these, we'd like to discuss that with you. All right. And let's move on to troubleshooting. So for troubleshooting, we'd like to ask that to ensure that the EM FixPack 1 is installed on both primary EM and secondary EM nodes. This will, FixPack 1, increase the reliability of the CHA process, and it'll work better. So the test, if you can test your DNS name resolution and network latency, if that's improved, it'll improve communication between the failover as well as the CHA process to the database. Firewall and other issues with port communication between the primary EM and the secondary EM. If you've assigned a port range, like you can do in orb configure, those will be respected by the EM CHA process. And if you aren't seeing, after installing the secondary node, if there's any issue with not verifying no problem with if the failover isn't showing up in the configuration high availability tab, then please verify that the configuration agent is up on both servers, and that should activate it then. All right. Let's talk about some troubleshooting debug in the event that there is an issue. On the EM server directory, there's an INI directory under there. There's a CHA, again, that's coordinator of high availability, _diag levels .ini. And if you can change the first line on, and you want to do this on both the primary machine and the secondary, you can change that to minimum debug level 5-5, and then save that and stop and restart the EM configuration agents, and that'll restart the CHA process. And then please recreate the issue and run the EM data collector and upload the resulting file. This will, when you open the issue and you have this information, it's appreciated and it'll speed resolution. Let's see some additional information that's good to know about EM9 and failover for high availability. Currently, on Unix and Linux, we support Oracle 11G and 12C, and on Windows installs, we support the Microsoft SQL Server 2008, 2012, and 2014. So Postgres will be supported in a future version or FixPack of the Enterprise Manager. FixPacks will need to be applied on both nodes and restarted before failover and failback conditions can be recognized. Also, if you've installed into a VIP or a cluster name using the BMC EM profile name or the BMC host name profile, if you'd rather use our failover, it can be reinstalled without that, and the failover would recognize it. All right. So that completes the presentation. I'd like to say thank you for taking time out of your day to attend. We enjoy giving these, and we hope the information provided was useful. You will be receiving a survey as you close your webinar. We encourage you to fill it out and provide feedback. We like to know what we're doing right and anything else we can improve on where we can improve. Also, any future topics you'd like to see, please let us know about that. Also, please, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Our past webinars can be viewed on BMC Communities, as well as our YouTube channel, and you can download them in iTunes. Today's webinar will be posted there in a couple days. Our next webinar topic will be ControlM Application Integrator. Let's start the Q&A. Please post your questions again to all in the Q&A panel. While we address questions, I'm going to bring up this last slide. It lists recent webinars that may be of interest.